good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge with your latest Manchester United news. And I tell you what, the list is so big, I should go down the shop and do the shopping because that's a big list as well. We're going to be talking Sancho. We're going to be talking Ten Hag. We're going to be talking Tuchel. We're going to be talking a lot of things because there's a lot of news to get into. But let's start off with Jadon Sancho. You know, first of all, in life, sometimes there are layers to a story that you think you know the outcome to and you don't. Sometimes you've got to search a little bit to know the truth. And also, above anything, you can still be happy for something even if you don't agree with it. And I think the Jadon Sancho story and the rhetoric that follows him is so all over the place. It's a mess. When fundamentally, I'm really pleased that he's in the Champions League final. Genuine joy on his face. We've seen the videos in the dressing room. Look, does anybody really wish hate and toxicity on an individual they don't even know? And if you do, you probably need to take a look in the mirror. I'm pleased for him that he's in the Champions League final. I bear him no ill will. And if he does leave Manchester United, which I hope he does, I hope he goes and prospers somewhere else. But Sancho's not returning to Manchester United. And I think that the arguments some of you allow yourself to fall into, it's just wasted energy at times. Like, I mean, I've seen bring him back. I've seen sack Ten Hag and bring Sancho back. And it completely and utterly doesn't take into account the story that's out there. That Sancho doesn't want to come back to Manchester United. It was reported 2 weeks ago after the Champions League semi-final first leg where he played fantastically well. And it will be reported again over the next few days. He doesn't want to come back to Manchester United. So you can say bring the star boy back and everything like that. But it's like asking your dream date out to take him down to Nando's and they say, no, I don't like you. Like, he doesn't want to come back. That's the story at the moment. Of course, you can pray and it could change. But this story is not as simple as Ten Hag is stopping Sancho playing for Man United or Sancho is stopping, Sancho will come back if Ten Hag goes. The story's out there and it's what I know the story. You know the story. He didn't just fall out with Ten Hag. He fell out with a lot more people than that. His relationship with certain players might not be that good as well. I don't know what the situation is in the dressing room with Sancho. I don't know. Obviously, I think there are players there that do like him. But look, I just think there is so much to talk about around Manchester United. I was doing a watch-along for the PSG Dortmund game last night. And can I just say, I don't think Sancho was anywhere near as good as the first leg. So everybody's saying star boy, bring him back. I thought last night he was okay. So I don't even know what this, he was like world class is coming from. I think people have blinkered views. But I was doing the watch along last night and we had people who weren't United fans on. And somebody just said genuinely, what happened to the Glazer out movement, Mark? And the light bulb went off and I went, yeah, what did happen to the Glazer out movement? They still own half the football club. It's going to be one of the worst seasons we've ever had. And we're pinning it all on the manager and the players again. And the Glazers are just sort of in the background owning half the club. And everyone's like, there was protests, there was movements, and it's all gone now because Ineos own 25%. Figure that one out for yourselves. Ineos own 25% and it's killed any Glazer out movement who own half the club. I'm not here to talk about the Glazers. I'm just saying we go from one extremely divisive argument to another and we never actually take stock of the reality. The Glazer out movement is dead and they still own half the football club. People are moaning this morning saying sack Ten Hag and bring Sancho back, but they're not listening to the fact that Sancho doesn't want to come back and has actually got issues with people beyond Ten Hag. Man United at this moment in time are trying to buy Olise, which means they won't bring Sancho back anyway. Like, things can change. Football is very changeable. In a month's time, maybe Ten Hag is sacked and Sancho does get persuaded to come back because we don't buy Olise. But at the moment, everything suggests that he won't return. So when people are like, why don't you talk about Sancho coming back? Because it's a bit like saying, why don't you talk about signing Osimhen? I mean, there's more chance of Sancho coming back than of signing Osimhen, but I don't think either thing is viably happening at the moment from what I've heard. So, look, really, really pleased for him. With all my heart, really pleased for him. And I don't want Dortmund to win the final. I would rather Bellingham win it. I prefer Bellingham. And I'd love to see Bellingham win the Ballon d'Or. I think it would be great for English football. But you know, he's in the final. They played really well. And what an opportunity to play in a Champions League final at Wembley. I'm really pleased for him. I really wanted us to sign him a few years ago. I think he's pissed his United career up the wall, and I think he's got to look at himself for that more than anybody else. But that doesn't mean he can't go and have a good career elsewhere. It doesn't mean he couldn't. I think it's far-fetched. Come back to Man United and have a good career, and hopefully he's learned from his mistakes. But it's never personal. I mean, this is about what's best for Manchester United. I don't put players, managers, or anybody above what's best for Manchester United. And as I said 2 weeks ago, it's in everybody's interest that Sancho does well for Dortmund, because it gives us more options, whether it's bringing him back, selling him. There will be people looking at Sancho now going, well, if a Dortmund loan deal is our only option in the summer, imagine Sancho says, I'm not coming back to that club, no way, and no one wants to buy him, and we can only loan him to Dortmund. That's not good. But what I think is going to happen now is you're going to get clubs going, we'll give you a bit of money for Sancho. So look, I think it's a really positive situation with Jadon Sancho. The only thing I would say is I saw a few people on Twitter, and it is Twitter, saying things like, oh, I'm really, really happy for Jadon Sancho because, you know, after what he's been through. And I'm like, well, yeah, he has been through some stuff. Of course he has. But let's not forget, if you're saying, you know, after what Sancho's been through, he deserves that. I mean, being sat on your backside playing computer games for 3 months on 300 grand a week, he had a part to play in it. I'm not going to portion blame on him completely, but let's not pretend that Sancho was thrown out of the team for no reason and he didn't apologise. Like there is two sides to a story in life, and I know we live in a society where people struggle with that. And you can check out the new podcast where I talk about that a lot more, about that Man City nonsense. But there is two sides to a story here, and you don't know it as much as I don't know it. So people out there going, oh, I feel so sorry for him. His career was put on hold. I mean, Man United backed this lad a year before that and let him go for 3 months to solve whatever problems he had in the middle of a season and paid him 300 grand a week. So this club did something I've never seen any club do. I've never seen Man United do that before. I've never seen a football club that, you know, needed him say, you've got issues, we're going to support you, go away and do what you need to do for, was it 4 months? So the club has supported Sancho, and I don't know what the true story is. I mean, look, the way I look at things, if I was Jadon Sancho, I would have been forever indebted to Man United for them letting me go off for 4 months and, you know, solve the issues that I had. It's such a rare thing to happen in football, and I think United dealt with it really well, and we all supported Jadon on that. And then a year later, he's tweeting something out and the club falls out. I think it's really sad. But I don't think he's returning to Man United. I think, and also, you're not going to get Olise and keep Sancho. So, yeah, let's run a poll on that, actually. I think that's an interesting one. But look, ultimately, you know, I don't live my life like that, and I hope many of you don't as well. I didn't see him last night happy and think, oh, you've shat on United or you fell out with United. I'm not happy for you. There's very few United players that I wouldn't be happy for if they left and did well. But I don't see him returning. As I said, if you tune in a little bit late. We're a little bit early this morning because I've got to go and get my hair cut, so I couldn't start at 10 and finish at 11. So I've had to start 15 minutes earlier just so we can get the full thing. But yeah, I think that there's very little chance that Jadon Sancho will return. He doesn't want to return at the moment, and his problems go beyond Eric Ten Hag. So people who think it's Ten Hag versus Sancho, it goes beyond that. I don't think there's much appetite for Man United to bring him back either. I think everybody's just in a happy place at the moment. I genuinely think United are happy that he's doing well. We've earned a lot of money out of that loan deal because he's gone to the Champions League final. We've hit certain bonus payments. So we've basically covered his wages for the last 4 months with him doing well at Dortmund and going to the Champions League final, and maybe even a little bit more. So at the moment, it works for everybody. It really, really does. Bringing him back and bench him, says Sticks. Mark, I was thinking about this the last few days. Ranić spoke about open heart surgery. Ineos have suggested everyone has a price. Is it a coincidence we've seen similar player-manager issues, says Patrick? I don't think so, and I think we all know that needs to happen. It's funny, I was asked a question about this morning. And you've just reminded me, Patrick, so well done. I will say this. If you sack Ten Hag and you bring in De Zerbi, Southgate, Ten Hag, Tuchel, whatever, if you don't clear out the players, you will cause the same issue. It's the same problem Mourinho had, Ollie had, Ranić had, Ten Hag had. We've never cleared the players out. If we don't clear the players out, the next manager will fail. And I'll tell you for why. Because you look at United, remember when Rangnick had half an hour against Crystal Palace and we were like, this is what happens when you get a proper coach. And then on 31 minutes, the players couldn't do it anymore. Remember that first summer under Ten Hag and we had those little clips of all the passing triangles, even McTominay was doing it. And on the pre-season tour, we did really well. And then they couldn't sustain it. Pep Guardiola can't get that team to play like Man City. Jurgen Klopp can't get that team to play like Liverpool. They might do it for an hour. They might do it for a game. They might even do it for a month. But they won't be able to do it because they're not that type of player. This team squad suits Brentford and Thomas Frank. It's a counter-attacking, low-possession team. So whoever your next manager is, and none of you want Southgate, and none of you want Sean Dyche, and none of you want Thomas Frank. You all want Amorim, De Zerbi, Tuchel. You want players that have an identifiable, entertaining style of football. Well, we haven't got the players for it. So if you're going to change the manager, please, for the love of God, scream to change the playing squad. Because whoever the next manager is, if you give them these players, they can't do it. So we have to change the players. Even if you change the manager, you've got to change the players because they can't do it. They can't play the way the top teams in this country play. Consistently, it's been proven time and time again. We've got to bring the players in that can play the style of football that the manager wants to play. And unless we're appointing Southgate, this squad, or Thomas Frank, this squad, we've got to do it. Mark, thank you very much. Sad, you know I used to love him. Now just get gone, says Fuge. A big if we bring in Olise, do you think it'll be Rashford or Garnacho on the left, says Kartik. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, if we get... I wouldn't be surprised if Sancho has a good season. Rashford has a good season next year. You know, one bad, one good. If Sancho scores a brace in the final under contract through 2026, how much is he worth to a top club willing to play, says Joseph. It's an interesting prospect if that happens, isn't it? It really is. It really is. Okay, lots to talk about this morning. We've got a bit of a poll going on for Olise or Sancho. 82% for Olise at the moment. I think people want change, don't they? And that maybe is with the manager. It's certainly with the squad. It certainly is with the ownership as well. Look, lots to get into this morning. Let's just talk about the manager situation. A couple of updates around Erik ten Hag coming in this morning. First and foremost, from Fabrizio Romano. Remember yesterday evening on the show, we had a story coming out that Manchester United will not be recruiting... Bayern Munich will not be recruiting Erik ten Hag. Then we were sort of like, I wonder why that is. Well, it's come out from Fabrizio Romano that the reason Bayern Munich have moved away from looking at Manchester United's Erik ten Hag as the manager is because they want to bring a manager in now. Get your words out, Goldbridge. They want to bring a manager in now, and basically Erik ten Hag has said that he wants to focus on Manchester United. So I feel that story is sort of done and dusted now, in the sense that Manchester United and Erik ten Hag was of interest to Bayern Munich, but effectively he's going to stay at Man United. Sorry, I was trying to read the direct quote from Fabrizio, but I couldn't find it. I'll focus on you now. So basically, Bayern Munich were very interested in Erik ten Hag. They've looked at it, but Ten Hag's representatives are basically saying that Ten Hag is focused on Man United and the FA Cup. Bayern Munich want to get a manager in now, so they've moved away from Ten Hag. So it's a risk from Ten Hag. You know, that is a risk. What if he'd said, oh, yeah, I'm very interested in the job? I think Bayern Munich would just want to get it resolved quickly, and Ten Hag's not going to be resolving his future probably till the end of the month. So interesting about that, I suppose. But that's the story behind it. I was a bit confused by how Bayern Munich had made Ten Hag priority number one almost 2 days ago, and now suddenly he's not. But apparently, according to Fabrizio Romano, it's because Bayern Munich want a decision now, and Ten Hag's like, Man United's my priority. I'm not making a decision until they sack me. And Bayern Munich have said, well, we're not waiting. So, yeah. Does that show that Ten Hag is staying, says Ken? No, I don't think it does. I think it's... I think what's happened here is, put yourself in Ten Hag's shoes. You're managing Man United. Bayern Munich say, we're interested in you, but we want a decision now. And you say, look, I'd be, I'm flattered, but this is my job. and I want to keep this job. It's a risk because you might lose it, and then the Bayern Munich job's gone as well. But I think it's his determination to keep his job. It doesn't mean he's keeping the job. I don't think Ineos have said, don't talk to Bayern, you're staying here. I think it's a personal decision by Ten Hag, which shows his commitment to Man United. Some might say it shows his stupidity, because if he gets sacked at the end of the month, the Bayern Munich's job's gone. Where does he end up? New Ten Hag in-out poll, probably close nowadays, says Fuge. We did it yesterday, mate, and we've got it on Spotify as well. I'm not doing another Ten Hag in poll. We did 3 yesterday. It's about 60% in and 40% out. It was 50-50 when it was 4-0 at full time against Crystal Palace. Do you think having a pragmatic manager in Ollie, Jose, Van Gaal is skewed the scouting to pragmatic counter-attacking players, says the Beast? 100%. If they don't change the playing squad, whoever is there next season will struggle for the top 10. The squad is finished and has been finished for years, but our owners keep trying to recycle it. Ray, I feel like that meme where everybody stands up and cheers. This is not about the manager, Ray. You're absolutely spot on. Whoever the next manager is, they will fail if you don't change the squad. They can't play like Brighton. They can't play like Bayern Munich, and they can't play like Sporting Lisbon, and they can't play like Real Madrid. They can't do it. So whoever your next manager is, unless you're buying them Harry Potter's wand, they're going to need a miracle if you don't give them the players. This is not about the manager anymore. This is about the players. And, you know, I got a bit of stick for saying that the team on Monday is... You know, we've been seeing this for years, and people were like, well, how can you have seen it for years? Because there was 8 players that Ten Hag brought in. And I'm like, have you ever been in a football club in your life? Like, just because 8 of those players are Ten Hag's players that he's brought in doesn't mean that they're not infected. Like, if you walk into a room with somebody who's got a cold, you don't have a cold, but when you walk out, you might have one because you're infected. The dressing room that got rid of Mourinho doesn't exist here anymore. I don't think there's hardly anybody. Rashford, Shaw, Martial. There's hardly anybody from the Mourinho era. That Mourinho dressing room turned on him, went behind his back and got him the sack. But it's a culture in the dressing room. New players come in after Mourinho's gone and learn from some of those players. And then those players start to go, but the new breed have that mentality and it gets carried on. I'm not talking about individual players. I'm talking about a toxic dressing room that has been passed on year to year to year. It's not as simplistic as saying, well, it was Pogba and co that got Mourinho the sack, so why are you saying it's the same for Ten Hag? Because it's learnt behaviour. You've worked at businesses, you've worked at pubs, you've worked in, you know, cheese factories and offices. A culture carries on. We've seen it in very, very serious cases, like we've had it aimed at organisations in the UK where there's a sexist culture that's been going on for decades, or a racist culture or whatever. The people won't be the same people all the way through. It's learnt behaviour that goes all the way through. When I'm talking about Monday night, it reminds me of Ollie against Everton 5 years ago, 4-0. How many players played in that game and played on Monday night? Hardly any. But the behaviour is the same. It reminds me of 2 years ago with Rangnick against Brighton. How many started in that game and how many started on Monday? Probably not many. But the behaviour is the same. It's a learnt toxic behaviour that runs through that football club. And that's why we need to clear it out and bring new players in. If you've got a room full of 10 people who've got an illness and you try and cure that illness, it's a lot of work. If you take all 10 out, disinfect the room and put 10 new people in, the illness is gone. And then it's up to you to make sure that it never comes back through education and training, etc. And I think that's what Man United need to do. Ineos needs to be honest with Ten Hag and the players. They need to make the hard decisions now. FA Cup or not, it shouldn't happen, says John. And Rhea says, if Eric Ten Hag gets the sack, it's another rebuild with a new manager. Another 2 or 3 years before we can even think about challenging for the league. I think it's another 3 years anyway, really. I suppose it might be slightly less if Ten Hag starts to turn it around next year, but I think... Yeah, I think we're 3 years at least away from getting into the top 3, in my opinion. I think we're bloody miles off compared to everybody else. I look at what Arsenal have done and what Man City have done. I think it's absolutely massive. Somebody just said there, what do you think about Michael Owen? What in general? I know what quote you're talking about. So Michael Owen, I don't know who gave him a pint of Peroni on Monday night, because let's not forget, Michael Owen normally spends his time stood next to Howard Webb polishing his shoes. I mean... You know, if you've ever watched Michael Owen and Howard Webb's show, it's Howard Webb talking about how great the PGMOL is, and Michael Owen offering all the resistance of a poppadom a bowling ball going through a poppadom. As an analogy, Michael Owen basically watches Howard Webb back the PGMOL on everything and does nothing. As an analogy, that's like the person who is destroying the game for football fans, and you're stood there applauding them. So when Michael Owen's got anything to say about Manchester United, I just think about the guy who applauds the PGMOL every week and backs them as they destroy the game of football. So Michael Owen's opinion on anything to do with football belongs in the bin as far as I'm concerned, because he's just a paid supporter of the PGMOL. I've never heard him challenge them or talk about past decisions or anything. So he's not a friend of any football fan. He's just taking the money and backing the PGMOL. So, you know, and as an analogy, he's there applauding while the game's getting destroyed. But this is what he had to say. And people will go, well, he's right. But my point is, so you're going to make Michael Owen your spokesperson now, when we know what he does with the PGMOL and Howard Webb. I mean, look, in life, sometimes you've got to have a standard. There's certain, you know, I don't want Joey Barton to be saying something I agree with and going, well, he's right. It's like, it's still Joey Barton. And, you know, there'll be a sunny day every summer, even if it rains all summer. You know, a clock is right twice a day, a broken clock. So he said Ten Hag, simply cannot manage this team next season. He's not good enough. I've thought it for ages, and he's just not good enough to manage Manchester United. I mean, it's amazing. As I said, who gave him a pint of Peroni? I mean, he has literally no opinion about the game, about, you know, the disgrace that the officiating has been. He stands there with a big smile on his face next to Howard Webb for 9 months, and now suddenly he's giving it the big one about Man United. I mean, you couldn't write it. And maybe part of what he's saying is true, but I just don't take him seriously. I'm like, mate, you've had 9 months to make a name for yourself by actually calling out countless bad decisions that are destroying the game, and now you've decided that you're going to be Billy Big Bollocks about Man United. Well, I'm sorry, mate. Liverpool fans don't want you, and Man United fans don't want you. So your opinion to me, well done. You're probably playing to the masses at the moment, but I was asked the question, what do I think about Michael Owen's opinion? I don't respect his opinion because I don't respect what he does. So he might be right, he might be wrong, but the day I start championing Michael Owen's bloody comments based on the way he's behaved this season is the day I probably walk away from football. I don't agree with him. If Scholes said the same thing, look, I love Paul Scholes. It's very different. I love Paul Scholes. He's a legend. He's one of the best players I've ever seen. He's a legend. So is Gary Neville. So is Roy Keane. But if we're being honest, how many times has Paul Scholes, Gary Neville and Roy Keane spoke glowingly about a Man United manager in the last decade? Look, we've not had a lot of success, but Jose Mourinho won a Europa League. Eric Ten Hag won a Carabao Cup and got us 3rd place. We won an FA Cup. You know, we have won things in the last 10 years, and I've never really heard them be positive. So I think that when it comes to the ex-player brigade, I think that their standards are very high because they played at a very high level. But I think their standards are beyond reality. And, you know, sometimes that can be unhelpful because it's very easy to criticise the situation, but what's your solution? Steve McClaren as an interim. Come on. I mean, I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe Steve McClaren as an interim. I mean, I was worried when we got Steve McClaren as an assistant. He's not been relevant for about 15 years, but I trusted Ten Hag on it. But to put him in charge of Man United for an FA Cup final, I mean, you may as well get Ollie back. You may as well get Ollie back. Victor, you need to listen to the podcast. I'm not talking about it on here. Did you see Anthony's comment on the group chat calling Ten Hag an egghead, says MD? No. And Patrick says, I remember Ten Hag calling out standards in the pre-season, naming Varane and Rashford specifically. It's been an issue since then and has been long overdue, says Patrick. Look, you make a good point, Patrick. I don't want to be UK gold, but if you go back to the pre-season tour in America, I can't remember which game it was, but he called out the standards of those players on that tour. And that was a very surprising thing to do after the season that we'd had. If Ten Hag gets the sack, it's another rebuild, says Ria. Thank you very much. So I am actually just going to do this Ten Hag in-out thing because people are moaning about it. But Sancho or Olise, 18% of you would go with Sancho, 82% of you go with Olise. That's amazing, isn't it, really? Considering there are people out there who are saying bring him back, bring him back. I think there's a lot of there's clearly a major movement there that we move on. Look, it's down to you. What would I do? It's a great question. What would I do, Olise or Sancho? You know what? Sometimes I just put the polls out there and let you crack on. What would I do? Sancho or Olise? Sancho's the better player on potential. Sancho's the better player. And I base that on the fact that I know more about Sancho. I think Sancho's talent is better than Olise's, but maybe that's because Sancho's done it in the Champions League, Dortmund, whereas Olise's only been at Palace. Olise's got the better potential. I think Sancho's the better talent. Just on pure footballing ability, that's what I'm talking about here. Olise's got the better potential. I think Sancho's the better talent. For Manchester United, I mean, look, there's a part of me, I'm not going to be a hypocrite, that is like, we're spending 55 million on Olise and we need centre-backs and midfielders and right-backs and strikers. So part of me is like, is it wasted money on Olise when we haven't got a lot of money to buy a winger? And we're obviously doing it because we're not keeping Sancho and Greenwood, are we? Let's be honest. So I can understand why we're signing Olise, but at the moment it seems a bit odd. But then when you think if they get rid of Sancho and Greenwood, we will need a winger. So I can understand that. What would I want next season? Olise in a Man United shirt or Sancho in a Man United shirt? I think I'd have to say Olise. And the only reason is this. Sancho's been here. He's had issues. He's been inconsistent. We've had problems. Olise hasn't been here. And what is it we want? What is the vision we want? We want a new vision with a new mentality and a new consistency. Now, will you get that with Sancho? It's a risk. Will you get with that with Olise? It's a risk. But I think you're more likely to get it with Olise because he's coming into a club with a different mentality and he's got to prove himself. And if we set the standards from day one about this is what it's expected, it's more likely that he will hit it as a new player than bringing a player back, I think, who might have old habits. So, yeah, I probably would go for Olise. Wayne, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. And SK says that the players are thinking from their level as a player with man manager. Our players aren't at that level. We need more than just a man manager, says SK. And Rafi says you're just bitter. He played well. Ten Hag's arguments were initially good, but they have become increasingly deluded. Rafi, I don't think you've listened to the show, and you sort of fit exactly what I said at the start of the show. You've not listened to the first 15 minutes, so we won't be getting dragged down into this Sancho toxic argument. As I said, I'm pleased for him to be in the Champions League final. He doesn't want to come back. I don't think we want him back, and I think he'll go in the summer with our best wishes. But Rafi obviously hasn't watched the first 15 minutes, so we'll move on to new topics. Let's just talk about some of the other stuff that's coming out. There was an article by Chris Wheeler in the Daily Mail that came out last night that was rather interesting. And just to pick a few points out from that, representatives for Thomas Tuchel have made it clear that he wants the Man United job, but there are concerns over his abrasive nature. Other contenders for the United job include Amorim, Potter, De Zerbi and Frank. Southgate and Nagelsmann would not be available until after the Euros. I mean, this is interesting because some of those names make me want to cry and then throw up. Imagine crying and throwing up. That's how I feel. Thomas Frank as a Man United manager. I mean, some of it's genuinely scary. Like, it's scary that names like that. Look, I don't think he'll be the next Man United manager, but what scares me is it's a little bit like somebody saying, I think, you know, it's a bit like Ineos considering signing Jordan Henderson. Like, it's scary. We won't sign Jordan Henderson and we won't get Thomas Frank as manager, but what scares me is the fact that they might be on the shortlist and who put them there. We are Manchester United. You know, I know we're Manchester United, but we are Manchester United and Liverpool are Liverpool. And there are certain things, even if you're in a relegation battle, you're still Liverpool and you're still Man United. And your standards might have dropped on the pitch, but it doesn't mean you drop them in the boardroom. Like, just because we're not as good as we should be doesn't mean we should be considering Thomas Frank. Like, there is a standard, and it worries me if that name is on the list. Who's put it on the list, and do they really understand what Man United's all about? And I hope that makes sense, because We are Manchester United, and there are certain people and players and managers that should never be on the list. We have a standard of what we are. Like, Liverpool would never consider Thomas Frank. They would never consider Southgate. They would never consider Potter. It just wouldn't. They'd be like, we're Liverpool. We're not doing that. So why are Man United being linked to these people? It's scary. Thomas Frank, Graham Potter, Gareth Southgate, who's putting them on the list, and what the fuck do they know about Man United? It's scary if they're on there. De Zerbi, I get. Amarim, I get. Tuchel, I get. I don't want any of them, if I'm being honest. I don't think it's an upgrade. I think it's a risk. De Zerbi's going to cost you money as well. Tuchel, I mean, look, in relation to Tuchel, are we really going to get excited because a manager wants the Man United job? Mourinho wants the Man United job. Tuchel want the Man United job. Why do they want the Man United job? Because they haven't got a job. They've been sacked. And Man United is still one of the biggest clubs in the world. You know, if you get divorced, basically, imagine you're married, right? You get kicked out your family home. You're living in your car. You get a knock on the window from Margot Robbie, and she says, do you want to go out on a date? You're not going to go, oh, I could do with a shower and a fresh change of clothes. You're going to go, where are we going? And this is what I mean. When we get these news stories that Mourinho wants the Man United job, or Tuchel really wants the Man United job, can we just take into account their situation? They're not managing Real Madrid to a treble with the youngest team in the world that's going to dominate for 10 years. They don't want the Man United job then. They want the Man United job because they haven't got a job. That's why they want it. So these people getting excited. Oh, Tuchel wants the Man United job. Jose wants the United job. They're basically that person in the car who's been kicked out. They haven't got a job. So of course they want the Man United job. We can't say we want Jose or Thomas Tuchel because they want the Man United job. Of course they want the Man United job. You've got to look at why they want the job, why they were sacked, what their skill set is now. Are they still top-class managers or have they fallen off? Do they suit Man United in relation to their principles, their vision, their style of play, their development of youth, their transfer record, their ability to work in a structured board where they won't have total control? I don't care about them wanting the job. It's bloody obvious why they want the job. So yeah, look, Tuchel's under consideration. Some say that he's the favourite, but he has got an abrasive nature. He has fallen out with every board he's ever worked with. And he has just been sacked by Bayern Munich as the only manager that not only hasn't won the league, but has been absolutely demolished. What are they, 15 points off the top? They're not even close. They're not even close. That is not a good look. Like, it's virtually impossible not to win the league with Bayern Munich, and somehow he's managed it. So, is that the sort of personality and guy you want to bring to Man United when we desperately need to get this decision right? And for me, it's a no. I don't want him. But if we get him, there we go. Madrid had similar toxic players like Hazard, who came in on huge wages and are happy to sit on the bench. Difference being that Madrid is run properly, says Rahul. And Luciano says, I'm Ten Hag in, but if we get an interim, I want Ollie for those 4 games. He has a good record. We're not getting an interim, mate. We're not getting an interim. Fuge, Thomas Frank is at Brentford. Kez says that Ten Hag was ruthless at the start with players. Do you think he's still like that, or is player power winning at the moment? Love the show, Mark. This is a great question. So if you think about Ten Hag, some of the ruthless things he's done, Sancho, De Gea, Ronaldo, you know, there has been some ruthlessness there. You can't deny that. But where is he now? He's in a vulnerable position. Mourinho was here. Ollie was here. Rangnick was here. It can happen to the best of them. It happened with Van Gaal. When the results are going bad and you've got an injury crisis like this and you've got players putting in performances like that, as a manager, you can't walk into the training ground or the dressing room and go absolutely, you know, mad about it. You're going to get... You've got to work with what you've got, and you've got to try and get people on side. And this, unfortunately, is where player power starts to kick in a little bit. If you've got the wrong people in your dressing room, they become empowered at the moment because they can see a weakness. They can read the papers. They can see social media. They can see the mainstream media, and they know that they're more likely to stay than the manager. So suddenly, maybe a calf doesn't feel right. Ooh, I'm out for 2 weeks, or maybe on the pitch, you're putting 5% in less than you normally would. This happens with everybody. It's a reality. you know, it's a reality. It happens to Chelsea. It's happened to Spurs. It's happened to Liverpool when they had Hodgson in charge. Like, they sense, it's like lions seeing prey. Like, suddenly they have the power and the manager is in a vulnerable position. So I don't think he can be as, he's in a survival. If he can get to the summer and he gets backed by Ineos, I think we'll see the ruthlessness again. But at the moment, he's in a weak situation, and the players probably do have more power. Forget about the players. If they fire Ten Hag and go for Southgate, Ineos era is going to be even more worse than the Glazer, says Vivek. No old players as well. Took 4 years for Sir Alex to win a trophy. Give Ten Hag the time he deserves, says Angelo. Eric Ten Hag, the time, backing and trust Arteta, got through all the bad times and results. Watch him just be good. Trust the process, says Fuge. Thank you very much. Okay, we've still got a few bits of news to go through here as well. There was something else here I wanted to bring in as well. Where is it? Ineos will let Ten Hag stay in charge of Man United for the rest of the season. Eric, sticking with him for now. That wasn't what I wanted to talk about because we spoke about that last night. We don't want to be repeating the same old shit. Some stuff. Oh yeah, some stuff coming out about Greenwood from the Telegraph, from James Ducker, saying that basically all options are on the table. They might loan him. They might look to sell him. I think they'll look to sell him. I've said that before. I think they will do. Lisandro Martinez, this was it. Lisandro Martinez has set his sights on being fit for the FA Cup final against Man City. Hopes to get some minutes under his belt in the remaining 3 Premier League games. Obviously, we've got Arsenal at the weekend, and a lot of people are sort of like, will there be any players back for that? I think that with regards to Sunday's game, sorry. With regards to Sunday's game, what I'm hearing is that it's very unlikely we're going to see any changes defensively. I don't see how that back four is going to change. We're not expecting Luke Shaw to be rushed back. Varane is still apparently quite a way off. Lindelof is apparently further off. Kambwala, I don't know. Martinez, we've got that update. Maguire could be out for the season. So I don't think we're going to see any different defence against Arsenal, which is terrifying, really, isn't it? Yeah, and this is what I mean. Look, I'm telling you on Wednesday we're going to get smashed by Arsenal because, again, we've just got no fucking defence. It's like, it's not rocket science. People, I don't know. I almost would love to get a consortium of these hipsters who think we should be playing better football with what we've got. I'll get me vlog. I'll get me vlogging camera. We'll go down to Carrington. Ten Hag can take the day off, or he can hold the mic. And we'll get these Twitter hipsters to coach the team between now and Sunday in how we can play good football against Arsenal. And then we can all laugh at how it goes spectacularly wrong. Because if we've got no Martinez, and we've got no Varane, and we've got no Maguire, and we've got no Lindelof, and we've got no Kambwala, we've got Evans and Casemiro and Wan-Bissaka at left back. And we'll have Eriksen in the midfield again, because McTominay probably won't be fit either. Like, what do you expect is going to happen on Sunday against one of the best teams in the league? What do you think is going to happen? So yeah, injury-wise, it's not looking like it's improving. I don't know. Somebody just said what's happening with Rashford. I don't know. I don't know about Bruno. I suspect Bruno will be back for that game, even if he has to hop. I mean, Bruno's injury against Palace must be bad. Like, yeah, it makes me worry. Does he have a broken leg? Because he will play. So God knows what was wrong with Bruno on Monday, because he will play. But the interesting thing as well is, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't Sweden in the Euros? Because the interesting thing for me is that a lot of these players need to be fit by the end of the month if they want to go and play for their country, which is what they want to do. And it's a bit of a piss take if some of these players don't play for Man United again, but then go off for the Euros or the Copa America. And I think that's what a lot of them have got prioritised. I think that you know, for Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire and Marcus Rashford, they're going to want to be fit for the Euros. England have got a great chance of winning the Euros, so they're going to want to be fit for the Euros. Martinez will want to play in the Copa America as well. So I'm hoping that some of these players can get back sooner rather than later, because really, they've got to prove their fitness. You can't be proving your fitness on bloody friendlies before the Euros, and especially when you're going to be playing 3 games in 10 days or whatever. So I'm hoping some of these players can get back. I mean, there are only 3 games to get back for, aren't there? The FA Cup is 2 weeks on Sunday. We've got Arsenal on Sunday, Newcastle on the Wednesday, and then Brighton on the Sunday, and then the following week's the FA Cup. So we've only got 2.5 weeks until the FA Cup final. But look, if I'm being honest, people will hate what I'm about to say here, but I did hint at it last week. We're not going to get 6th or 7th in the league. We're going to finish 8th. It's nailed on. And 8th is not enough for the Europa League or the Conference League. So we're going to finish 8th. That's what's going to happen. I think we'll get beat by Arsenal. We might get beat by Newcastle. We might get beat by Brighton. We probably won't lose all 3, but we're not going to win all 3, are we? So if we want European football next year, it's about the FA Cup. If I was Ten Hag, and I accept this, if I was Ten Hag, I would be using Arsenal, Newcastle and Brighton to try and win, but also reintegrating these players. So maybe Martinez gets 20 minutes against Newcastle, 40 minutes against Brighton, and then starts the FA Cup final. The same with Luke Shaw, the same with Rashford, the same with 3 or 4 other players. I wouldn't be throwing them in. I wouldn't be throwing them in at the you know, the very high risk that they, you know, have another injury. So the FA Cup final is basically our season, and it's going to be very, very difficult against Manchester City. But Leave My Barcelona says who will be available for the final. I do think Martinez, Varane, Shaw, Rashford, Bruno will all be back for the FA Cup final, and that's 5 first-team players. Hi Mark, love the show and the whole United stand team deserves massive credit. Can I ask, do you think Rasmus will still reach a high level at United, says Fatboy? Great question. Look, I'm going to back Rasmus, Garnacho and Mainu because they're young lads and I think they're our future. I think the future is bright for all 3 of them. I genuinely believe I've seen enough that they can be good, but I definitely think we need better players around them. The thing with, look, I could say this about Mainu and I could say it about Garnacho, but the thing with Rasmus that really jumps out for me is that he gets no service. So for all the people having a go and saying he didn't play well on Monday, and he didn't, and he'll know that himself, I wish he was playing for a Villa or a Newcastle or a Man City or an Arsenal where he actually gets some service, because he doesn't get service. Whether you like him or not, whether you rate him or not, whether you think he's got potential or not, he doesn't get any service. And that, to me, is where you judge a striker. So we've got to put better players around them. Look, Kobe Mainu is not a number 6. He's a number 8. So get him in the number 8 position. Rasmus Højlund is a striker. Give him service. Get Mainu in the number 8 with a proper number 6 behind him. It's the same for all 3 of them. Get Garnacho on a wing with a left back that can get Garnacho on the left-hand side with a left back that can overlap and support him. It's about support for all 3. Garnacho needs proper support behind him. Mainu needs a proper number 6 so he can be the number 8. And Rasmus needs proper service so he can be a striker. So you can criticise or you can praise. You can believe or not believe. But all 3 of those young players need support in different ways to get the best and nurture them through. That's my stance on Rasmus, Mainu and Garnacho. All 3 of them need to be in the right position with the right support. And that is the job of Man United, to deliver that. Because when you look at Man City, when they bring a young player in, they've got Foden, De Bruyne, Rodri to support them. That's what you need when you're going to develop young players. Otherwise, they will fail. Right, thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to go and get a haircut. Why is Conte not a target? Because he's not the right guy for Man United, Oscar. Clip this up, says Vivek. I hope that does get clipped up about our young players, because it's absolutely true. Every single one of those 3 players are lacking support in different ways. Garnacho would be way better if he had Luke Shaw with him. Mainu would be way better if he was the number 8 with a proper number 6 behind him. And Højlund would be way better if he was getting 4 or 5 good chances a game. And we're moaning at them, and they're young players trying to develop, and they haven't got the support. They need that support. Ryan Giggs came through at 17 and had amazing support with the likes of Mark Hughes and Brian McClare and everybody else. Like, you need that support. Thanks everyone for watching. We're back at 2 o'clock. It's a 7 o'clock show tonight because I'm doing Bayern Munich versus Real Madrid as well. Have a great day, whatever you're doing. Do not forget to check out the podcast, Goldbridge Saves Football, our most listened to podcast. A lot of people joining the Ultras, so give it a listen. I think the full video is going out in about 20 minutes on That's Football as well. So if you want to watch it on video, it's coming out very soon as well. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Take care.